Welcome to the Zions Bank Economic Update. I'm Deb Speed, and joining me is Robert Spendlove to compare the proposed economic policies of U.S. presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Robert, in a recent Gallup poll, Americans listed the number one problem facing America as the economy. Now, that's obviously going to influence which way they vote for this next election. With that in mind, can you help us understand where each of the candidates is coming from with their proposed economic policies?
Sure. I was thinking about this. Back in 1992, James Carville famously said, "It's the economy, stupid." He was talking about the election between Bill Clinton and George Bush Sr. And even 25 years today, the economy is still a number one concern in our elections. And what we've got is a really interesting dynamic going on in our country today, where we've got a populist sentiment that's really driving a lot of people's angst and a lot of people's motivation. We saw it on the Democratic side with Bernie Sanders, where he rode this populist movement on the left, and then on the right, Donald Trump rode the populist wave all the way up to becoming the nominee for the Republican Party. But they're both kind of motivated by similar characteristics. So what we've got in the economy, we've got an economy that's moving along, but it's not really strong. And while it's growing, it's not including everyone, and too many people feel like they're being left behind. So what we see this in our employment is growing, but it's not growing strongly. We see it in our labor force participation is growing, but we're still at levels that where we were in the 1970s. So too many people feel like the economy isn't producing the right kind of jobs. Then on the other side, we've got employers who can't find the right people. They have a lot of need for trained employees and they can't find them. So we have a disconnect in our workforce between those that need jobs and want jobs and the employers who can't find the right people. And because of that, it's feeding the sentiment, this underlying struggle that people are having that is creating more and more angst about our economic environment.
So let's talk about some of the specific elements of the economy and how the candidates maybe differ or are similar. Let's start with taxes.
And you can really see the differences in their plans or you can see the differences in their motivation through their tax plans. Hillary Clinton has a very traditional Democratic tax plan. Her plan is very similar to the tax plan that exists today, but she would have essentially a limitation on tax deductions. What's the effect of that? Well, the effect of that would largely be on wealthier individuals because wealthier people use deductions more and they have more ability to shield their income from taxation through their deductions. Clinton would remove that and thus have tax increases on the wealthier individuals. Then she would take that money and use that to fund more social programs to help people in need, help people like expanding Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, other programs to help people with less wealth. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has a tax proposal that would essentially cut taxes on all people. However, it would be across-the-board taxes. In other words, those with higher income would get bigger relative tax cuts. His argument, and he acknowledges that the wealthy would get bigger tax cuts, but his argument is that to give the wealthy more money back, they will turn around and return that money back into the economy, thus investing back in the economy. So it does present a very fundamental difference between kind of their viewpoints of the way to spur the economy.
So with both tax plans, you referred to the wealthier citizens in the U.S. With that in mind, what about income inequality? How do the candidates differ there?
That's another fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton has been strongly promoting the idea of raising the minimum wage. Some have said that she should raise it up to $12 an hour. Others are arguing $15 an hour. She hasn't gone all the way to proposing a $15 an hour minimum wage increase at the federal level, but she has endorsed increasing it from about $7 an hour to $12 an hour. And I would guess that she would be willing to endorse going as high as $15 an hour if she had the right Congress. Again, she argues that we need to be bringing the poorest people that are in the in the lowest incomes up and giving them more money to live on so they have a more livable wage. On the other side, you have Donald Trump, who argues that we should have no change in the federal minimum wage and argues that the best way to address this is at the state level. But that he would oppose any changes to the minimum wage because he feels like to raise that minimum wage would hurt job producers, hurt businesses, and be a real drag on the overall economy.
Wages are also influenced by our trade agreements. So what about trade?
This is this is a really interesting area where they originally had very vast differences between their agendas, but now they've come much closer. So Donald Trump, one of the centerpieces of his campaign has been against free trade, against globalism. Donald Trump has argued strongly against trade deals like NAFTA, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and other similar trade agreements. He said that the promises that were made, for instance with NAFTA, have not produced the results that we thought they would have, and that trade deals like NAFTA have been a drag on the U.S. economy and have really hurt working people. And so he has said that he would reject any trade deals, any of the pending trade deals, that he would impose much more strict restrictions on trade coming from other countries and would be much more strict about our overall trade policy. Hillary Clinton, as the Secretary of State, originally endorsed the Trans-Pacific Partnership. She argued in favor of it. Bill Clinton passed NAFTA. And so she has been much more inclined to encourage globalism and encourage free trade in the past. But again, because of that influence of the populist movement on the left by Bernie Sanders, she's come back from that position. And now she says that she would reject the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Even if she wins, she would say that it's not the right thing now and she doesn't support it anymore. So we've seen kind of a change in the Clinton campaign because of this populist movement.
So you're saying on trade, they're coming together a little bit more than maybe some of the other issues. Are there other economic issues which they kind of align their views on?
One of the ones, interestingly, where they're very similar is infrastructure spending. Infrastructure spending is typically kind of a Democrat idea. And just like representing kind of the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton has proposed large increases in infrastructure spending on roads, on bridges, rail lines, seaports, airports, all of the above. The argument there is that government spending on infrastructure will create more jobs, will spur more economic growth, and will help everyone. The downside always has been that government spending will cause the deficit to increase, and then you're going to have to raise taxes to pay for it. Interestingly, Donald Trump has taken on a very strong position of support of infrastructure, very similar to Hillary Clinton's. In fact, ironically, he recently criticized her as not proposing enough increase in infrastructure spending. And then if you look at one of Donald Trump's main policy priorities, what does he say? He wants to build a wall. Well, what's a wall but a gigantic infrastructure project?
So as the issues have been laid out, which plan would cause bigger changes in the economy, Trump or Clinton?
The Clinton plan is much more like a traditional candidate would propose, a very traditional Democrat candidate. Both plans, by the way, are going to cause the deficit to increase. Some are estimating that it could increase by hundreds of billions of dollars or possibly even trillions of dollars. Now, if we look at where they're spending the money, there's a little bit more depth into the Clinton plan than what Donald Trump has released, so we don't know the exacts. But Trump would argue that through, rather than static analysis, if you look at dynamic analysis, that it would have a more positive impact. But we don't know that for sure. But in terms of traditional versus non-traditional, the Clinton plan is a more traditional approach, and the Trump plan would be a little more non-traditional, as most plans would go.
Well, thanks for helping us navigate through what has at times been very murky waters.
Sure.
Thank you for joining us for this economic update. For more information and analysis, please visit zionsbank.com/economy.